Hello, Internet! Gino, that Pinguino Griaco here again with another episode of Deep Listens, and it's time once again to go balls deep as we are discussing the NBA Finals. We are recording this at the beginning day of the NBA Finals, for those of you who are listening. I think it will be before the game starts, so all of our takes will not be influenced by the NBA Finals. And I'm joined, as always, by our long-suffering Kings fan co-host for these shows, Chris ZombiePie Redacted.
Hey, everybody. It's not that bad being a Kings fan. We're at least not a national embarrassment. I seem to recall this time last year I asked, I don't expect the Kings to be good, I just expect them to be watchable. And unfortunately, I got my wish, even though I wanted a little bit more.
That's fair. And I'm also joined, as always, by our not anymore long-suffering 76ers fan, Pete Busby. Hi, guys!
Hey, Pete. So I know that the process is still active in the 76ers, but I just want to remind you it's officially ended in Sacktown because the last emblem of the Hinkie era is over.
Yeah, well, Hinkie can go die. I hate him and everything he did to basketball.
Even though you got like 2, possibly 3 All-Stars out of that and a bunch of trade assets without any bad contracts.
It's all the fruit of the tainted tree.
I mean, I'm rooting for a team that hasn't been in the playoffs for a literal decade, and yet it was just 2-3 bad years, and then you were back in it.
It's really the principle of the thing. That's really what sucks about it. Made basketball a joke.
You sound like you might have a cold here. You don't sound right.
I mean,
I'm just going to put it out there.
That's what Pete sounds like. I don't know what you're talking about.
I
really don't appreciate you making fun of him on the show.
I really don't like it either.
I think I need an animal fact to prove that this is actually Pete. Just going to put that out there.
Animal fact. Did you know that male platypuses have a barb?
I'm gonna interject here. I believe you have said this animal fact before. That there was a poisonous barb on platypuses, and they lay eggs.
No.
And it isn't, Gino, maybe chime in here, but I believe platypuses, that's your game. That's your area of expertise.
I like platypi. I don't recall that fun fact. Maybe, no.
I think this might be, Gino, are you faking this? Is that you, Gino?
No. What are you talking about? That's Pete.
Platypuses and, you didn't rant about how, the problems of the 76ers can be solved by communism. Is Pete not here, Gino? Am I the only one here to talk hoops with you?
I love communism. Yay!
That sounds like him.
And now I'm back on the other side.
Okay, fine. He's not here. But I did a great impression. It was like he was here.
I mean, were you inhaling helium to make that voice, or was that just something that you have a magical ability to do
I
or
can
say?
just do that.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's freakish.
I don't have a lot of skills, but this is one of them.
Well, you can speedrun certain Final Fantasy games and Magic Pangle.
I'm the best in the world at that. What a weird fucking show we have. So, without further ado, we will be discussing the NBA Finals, and I have prepared notes from Pete, and I'm giving up the ruse because reading all that he wrote in that voice would be bad for you, it'd be bad for me, it'd be bad for the listeners. No one would like it.
I think if you continued that voice, it would also be bad for your voice.
I've never tried to speak in that voice for more than 1 or 2 sentences at a time, so we would find out. It would probably be bad.
I feel like eventually I would then ask you.
Please stop.
Threatening.
Yeah,
quit.
Please stop.
Yeah.
So,
but wait, we have my.
You do. You've brought a tape.
Okay. I brought a tape. So my new skit or bit. I think I would even do this on the main podcast if I were ever invited to be on the main podcast again. Is as Gino and Pete can attest, I am a consumer of basketball Twitter, which is bereft of all reasonable logic and decency.
Yeah, basketball Twitter is a hellscape.
Like, if when, oh man, you should have seen basketball Twitter when Steph messed up that dunk.
Yeah.
Like, immediately afterwards, he's all washed, he's overrated, he can't shoot, blah, 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 blah. And it's like he's done this before.
People have missed dunks before. It's happened, especially people who aren't, like, 6'7" and up.
And Steph specifically has messed up dunks.
He's not an exceptional leaper. He's got other skills.
He's not designed to dunk. I don't know why he continues to do this from time to time.
Because he can. He needs to just let people know he can.
So I will leave this up to you. Would you want me to read the tweet about Steph Curry, Kawhi Leonard, or Kevin Durant?
I feel like your Kevin Durant thing will segue nicely with something that Pete has written. So,
okay. So this one's pretty bad. They're all bad. I actually thought the Kawhi one was the worst, but
I mean, we can let's go quick. Let's rapid fire them. What does NBA Twitter?
Okay.
It's a segment, so What does NBA Twitter say?
Here's what NBA Twitter had to say about Kawhi Leonard going into Game 7, which he absolutely
I know how to do
dominated.
this.
Or not
I know
Game
how to
7.
do this.
What?
What does NBA Twitter have to say about Kawhi Leonard?
Part 1, he's the definition of overrated. Yes, he is good, but if you were to put someone like Otto Porter in Kawhi's position, Otto Porter would be averaging almost 30 points. While Kawhi is pretty good on D, his offense is wildly overrated. He's nothing more than a product of a good system. There you go. I knew it. System player every single time. Every single time. Part 2 of this tweet.
That was not
What's
the whole. That was not all of it.
This is after he gets ass blasted with people who actually know how to use basketball reference. What's the problem here? I mean, Kawhi's not bad on offense, but he's just not as good as his stats say. If you were to switch him with Otto Porter, I think Otto would average anywhere between 27 to 31 points per game, while Kawhi would continue to just average 16 to 19 points per game on the Bulls.
Wait. So this guy believes that Kawhi Leonard, who basically gets his own constantly, very rarely on this Raptors team gets catch and shoot opportunities, and really in the last 3 or 4 years hasn't, since Tony Parker and Manu and that era of Spurs dominance faded away, it's basically been Kawhi as an ISO player. He's kind of like modern day Kobe in that way. And Otto Porter can't make his own shot, and really never has had to because he's played with Bradley Beal and John Wall. And then when he was asked to on the Bulls, they were one of the worst teams in the entire NBA. And he did not average like 25 or 30 points on a team that desperately wanted him to average that.
And I think people forget the fact that, the guy's willing to say that Kawhi is pretty good on D, but his offense is wildly overrated. He basically carried the Raptors.
And pretty good on D. He's maybe the best defensive player in
perimeter
on
defender. He's the best.
He's close. I mean, if he's not the best, it's like him, Giannis, Draymond, and like Rudy Gobert, and then it's all big men, all like gigantic 7-footers. Yeah. And Giannis is that, but he can also guard on the perimeter.
He's got those.
Yeah. Okay, so that was dumb. Okay, let's just.
All right, so now it's the Kevin Durant one. Oh fuck, man, this is a bad one.
What does Twitter have to say about Kevin Durant?
Kevin Durant is not unguardable. In fact, Kevin Durant is an overrated number 1 option. If he were number 1 on a team, he would struggle to get touches late.
What? Get touches?
Teams would double him. He would be neutralized. Remember, he can't create off the dribble. Remember, he can't create off the dribble. Inside, he is too light to post up low. On the Warriors, these aspects are just masked. Okay, which one do you want to attack first?
So, ZP, question. He played for a team before he was on the Warriors, right?
Why, yes, he did.
It was the Thunder?
I thought it was the Seattle
That's
Supersonics.
True. He's played for 2 teams before he played for the Warriors. And on those teams, like as a rookie, he was averaging like 20 a game when he did not have anyone around him other than Jeff Green. And
yes.
And then he's 7 feet tall, So the idea that he would not be able to get touches is ridiculous, because giving him the ball is really easy. Also, he can handle like he's like 6 feet tall. They basically said his greatest skill is something he's not good at, which is absurd. How do you... What... Those are the things he's good at. Those are his specialties.
Let's actually... Gino, I invented a time machine. Let's get into this time machine. I'm going to program it to 2014. Okay, let's get into this time machine, okay?
We got a lot of sound effects in this episode. Go ahead.
Gino, we're watching the OKC Thunder. We're watching the Thunder, and Westbrook is out with an injury. He seems to have messed up his knee.
For like half a season?
Is there anyone on this? Yeah, like half of the season, he's just not going to be here. Is there anyone on this team other than Kevin Durant that looks even reasonably close to being an all-star right now?
I don't know. Well, certainly James Harden must still be on the team.
Oh, no, he went to the Rockets. He's gone.
Oh, well, then certainly Serge Ibaka must be a borderline all-star player.
No, he is not. We are not. This is not Serge Ibaka. Nope, that's gone too.
Well, then the second-best player can't be Reggie Jackson.
Oh, my goodness, Gino. It appears that he's creating off the dribble and leading an entire team while Russell Westbrook gets his knee fixed.
Well, they wouldn't make the playoffs
on his
own.
own. Yes, but he seems to be like putting in just this absolute, oh, my God, I think they're going to make the playoffs.
Oh, wow. Well, it turns out...
It's almost like this was an MVP-worthy season, that he was like a top vote getter.
But it's not like he would win the MVP, though.
I seem to, maybe we can just wait, this is back in the time when, they actually did the right thing and they awarded the MVP award. It looks like the award, this trophy, the MVP trophy, is being handed to Kevin Durant.
Wow.
I think it's going to go to Kevin Durant.
He's not just passing it along to Russell Westbrook?
No, he's not just passing it to Russell Westbrook. I believe we now have him getting the MVP
Did you know that sometimes when you look to the past, it helps you contextualize the events of the present?
It's almost as if players can show different types of play and their absolute dominance when they're given better opportunities to be the only option on a team.
Well, what is our final tweet about Steph and Curry?
Okay, so we've got Steph. All right. This one just hurts. He's the greatest shooter. Ha! All other aspects, he's just average. People are so uneducated about basketball these days, and that allows them to make these statements about him being the best shooter. How can he be such a great player if he's only averaging 5.2 assists per game, with one, the scores they have, and two, how the NBA refs greatly favor his offense? Also, Lonzo has more assists than him, LOL.
So when you say he's the greatest shooter, you can't emphasize this enough. He's the greatest shooter that's ever lived. Like, that's a really big deal. It's important. It means that guarding him is really tough because you have to sometimes double him 30 feet from the basket, which means that Draymond Green, when he catches the ball on a pick and roll, is wide fucking open, has the entire floor open to any passes that he wants. Steph doesn't average as many assists as someone like Lonzo Ball because Draymond is getting the assist, but Steph made everyone open.
Mm-hmm. We're also forgetting the fact that Steph simply being on the court completely changes how you react or changes everything that your team now needs to do.
People double him off ball.
He creates plays by just being on the court.
And honestly, some of their most effective offense is when Draymond is just operating at the top of the key or in the high post, and then Steph and Klay are running around screens. And in order to have that play happen, you need Steph to not have the ball. Like, some of the most dangerous stuff and most of the creation he does is by setting screens off ball or by running around screens and having guys follow him and then not follow the guy who set him the screen, and they just get a lob dunk. Like, he makes the entire offense work. The Warriors without KD and with Steph are like plus 11 points per 100 possessions. He's the thing. Like,
and are we just completely ignoring the fact that Steph changed the game? Like, literally. Yeah. The game has changed, and there's no going back.
Are we ignoring the fact that the only other plus offensive player on the Warriors when KD is out is Clay, and everyone else is, like, neutral to negative? When Steph is on the floor with just Clay, there are two amazing shooters on the floor, but everyone else can't shoot. But because Steph and Clay are so damn good, it makes the spacing work. Whereas anyone even slightly lesser would result in major problems for their offense. Yeah, these tweets are bad.
For some reason, like, yeah, we need to, like, stop using Basketball Bible and misinterpreting it. Just because someone doesn't have a lot of assists, like, not everyone's Russell Westbrook and stealing stats from their fellow teammates.
Yeah, and not everyone's Rajon Rondo, where he won't give you the ball unless he can get an assist out of it.
Yeah.
You know, some players don't treat all of their teammates as though they are outlets for assists.
And also for his position, like, the assist stat is completely worthless.
I mean,
he's passing the ball, but, like, he's the second pass before the assist.
He probably leads the league in hockey assists, if I had to guess, because Draymond gets so many assists off of the advantages that Steph creates. And that's not a knock on Draymond, by the way. He's also an exceptional passer, an exceptional player. But I think the roll man off of a Steph Curry pick and roll just gets to do so damn much. Like, David Lee was a monster when he was setting screens for Steph Curry. Just about everyone becomes a monster when they're setting screens for Steph Curry. Draymond's just the best at it by a wide margin. All right, so without further ado, let's discuss the finals. Our predictions. Just a reminder, I predicted in the Warriors series that the Warriors would win in a sweep, and they did. Everyone else said 5 games. And then on the other side, we were all wrong. I had the Bucks in 5. You and Pete had the Bucks in 6, and the Raptors won in 6. So I don't think there's much to be gleaned from the Warriors, except that
they did what the Warriors
did. They did what the Warriors do. They played a few more close games than I expected, but it turns out they're good enough without their second best player to beat a Portland team without their second best player and with everyone else banged up.
I just want to say, you actually think Nurkic? Oh, you were talking about Kevin Durant. I thought you were going to say Nurkic is not the second best player on Portland. Okay.
Yeah, Nurkic is the second best player on Portland, I think. I think it's between...
You think he's honestly better than CJ?
When they're both healthy, I think it's close. And I think Nurkic, because CJ replicates...
Nurkic maybe gets it out if you group in defensive, like, as a defensive asset. Yes, he's absolutely necessary.
Yeah, I think that Nurkic, because he doesn't replicate skills with Damian Lillard, is just more valuable for them. Because there's no one else who operates out of the high post or can play defense the way that Nurkic can.
Okay, I can agree with that. Okay, so 2 things. Man, that completely got me out of my brain. So first off, I just want to address one thing from this series between Portland and pull a note from basketball Twitter. I just want to say, and I don't want people to misinterpret what we're going to say, the Warriors are not better without Kevin Durant. They're fun to watch. They're more enjoyable to watch, in my personal opinion. But objectively, they are not a better team without Kevin Durant.
They play harder, and their style of defense can sometimes be harder to guard. Style of offense.
But I see a lot of people saying, oh man, the Warriors are a better team without Kevin Durant. It's like, no.
It's just like how you want sometimes an ISO bench scorer, 6th man, because sometimes you just need to give someone the ball because it's late in the shot clock and you're tired and you need a shot that's just okay. And almost all of the Warriors players, other than Kevin Durant, require the offense to be humming. Like, Steph can get his own, but it's tiring the way he does it. But KD can just rise up over people in a way that no one else on the Warriors can. So he's a guy you want in the offense because he's unguardable. And an exceptional isolation scorer who can give other people rest sometimes. But the trade-off that you have is that sometimes he will hijack the offense when his skills are – he just needs to be Harrison Barnes and stand in the corner. But that trade-off is – like, you make that trade-off every time. It makes your team better. It gives you a dimension you don't have otherwise. Kind of like Boogie. You know, he gives you a low post threat that none of your other players are. Now, does he sometimes slow you down because he's not quick running the break, and he's not an exceptional defender when, in his injured state? Sure. But he gives you something that the rest of your team lacked. So just not having that tool makes you a worse team. You don't have to use it every time, but it's a tool.
Yeah, and to be honest, as much as it pains me to say it, like, the hand the ball to Kevin Durant and have him do everything, that offensive scheme, while I find it absolutely boring to watch, it's still more reliable than the Draymond to Steph pick and roll.
Oh, yes, that's true. I have some interjections from Pete whenever we want.
Okay.
So first one from NBA Twitter, just since we were just talking about that. I'm not dialed into NBA Twitter, but has the Giannis 2021 free agency talk started yet? If not, it's coming soon. I look forward to it overshadowing next year's finals and the year after that. The Bucks have a ton of free agents to deal with this offseason. Giannis has said he wants them all back. Coach Bud still deserves the Coach of the Year. As far as I'm concerned, technically it's just a regular season award anyway, although I wouldn't change my vote either way.
I think that Giannis needs to be told that they're at most signing one player, and it's probably going to be Millsap. And everyone else is going to walk.
You mean
because
Middleton?
I don't want you to pay Middleton. Sorry, Paul Millsap. Fuck, am I on drugs? Yeah, I would re-sign Middleton, and then everyone else I would be okay with letting walk because, to be honest, I think that this series proved that their biggest problem is shooting, and the other people that they have as free agents don't really fix that immediate need of more shooting, especially on the perimeter.
I mean, Brooke does.
But you got – okay, so if you're the Milwaukee Bucks, you picked up Brooke for $3.3 million. Yep. And the center position right now, especially with free agents, is overwashed. There's a lot of supply and not a lot of demand.
Yeah, I would bring Brooke back for 5. I don't think I would bring him back. If he's going to, command 10, he can walk. But I think even as good as he's been this year, because of that dynamic about how awash the center position is with talent, I think Brooke will still end up in the, $5 to $7 million range, even as good as he's been this year, and he's still most valuable to the Bucks.
Yeah.
So has basketball Twitter?
I don't honestly see anything.
Basketball Twitter hasn't blown up on.
Basketball Twitter thinks that Giannis is going to get courted by LeBron into L.A. Because everyone's getting courted to LeBron in L.A.
That sounds like basketball Twitter, sure. And something on the Kevin Durant discussion. I hope Kevin Durant, a brand bot extraordinaire who can't help himself from clapping back on Twitter no matter how petty it makes him look, following this postseason, rather than teaming up with Kyrie in New York, falls off the edge of flat earth. He's perhaps the greatest, most anomalous offensive talent in the history of the league, and I'm glad he isn't in this game. I can no longer stand him as a person, and the Warriors are more fun, and the game is more interesting without him. Hopefully, somehow, he hears this podcast and feeds his insatiable need for unconditional respect by calling out Deep Listens on Twitter. He's gone this offseason. He's probably going to the Knicks.
Oh, man. I think that – although, I got to say, if Kevin Durant doesn't play a majority of the series and the Warriors win, how bad of a look is that for him? I mean – you're on the team that's basically one of the most well-composed teams in the history of the NBA, and you joined to win a ring, and you leave when you're not getting what you want out of this. I just think that's an incredibly bad look for Kevin Durant if he leaves, especially if the Warriors can prove that they can win. Hence why
they have.
I think the Warriors are going to win the NBA Finals. So I just think that the Warriors have this thirst to prove, no, we're still the team. All of these people who think that our 2 championships don't count, we're gonna prove you wrong. 3 championships don't count.
So Kevin did get 3 rings out of this, or 2. Is this the 3-peat? Yeah. So this would be his 3rd ring. He got 2 rings out of it. Yeah. So I think success in that front. I mean, I think that the Warriors still have what they need in order to win without him. They still have an MVP. They still have Draymond. They still have Clay. Iggy's been playing exceptionally well. And Boogie will help. I really hope that him coming back is useful. I hope he gets to have his playoff moment.
I think, though, I hate to be a bit of a jerk, but I think that this is the best chance Steph has to win the Finals MVP.
I agree.
I think that this is the only way he gets it because he's always been the second best player. In controversial opinion, I think he should have won it in 2015. I think he should have won that.
Yeah, he should have gotten it over Iggy. I think that's
like no discounting Iggy's defense,
totally.
But like LeBron still scored 30. He scored 30 in the least efficient way LeBron can score 30 as possible, but Steph won that series, not Iggy.
Yeah, it's another thing where Steph's presence on the court, he's like a passive buff to all of his team members in a way that other players generally aren't. It's in a Steve Nash-y sort of way, where he's just a passive buff that is raising everyone else's performance, and it's like, oh, it's weird how everyone gets worse when he leaves the court. Whereas some players are a little bit more like, just a DPS class. It's obvious that they're doing good, but actually sometimes it's the...
Is it bad that when you said a DPS class and my first immediate thought was Dwight Howard, and I know we're supposed to not make fun of him on this podcast anymore, but he's the definition of a DPS, right?
Well, I think his defense, he's a passive buff on defense, but I think that someone like Zach LaVine is a...
Ooh, yeah,
he's a DPS class. He's just going to score you a bunch of points, and he's going to do nothing else for you. And if the other team has someone to lock him down, he's not doing anything for you. But
and then you have the character who's only giving you passive bonuses, like Tyson Chandler.
Yes. He's a bard. Man, I want a Tyson Chandler drawn as a bard now.
We need to do this. This should be a future podcast where we figure out what are the classes of every person still in the NBA.
Yeah, I mean, there was a while there where I was thinking of, I'm not going to say this into a microphone. I'm not going to say this into a microphone. But yes, these are things that should exist.
So anyways, I think the other thing that we need to talk about, especially with Portland, is I think the underrated part of this story, which kind of gets overlooked, is the fact that this was a monumental collapse on the part of Portland. Like, they had double-digit leads, 2 games out of the 4 leading into the half. And they just let Steph go beast mode and completely humiliate them.
Like, they tried to guard him as best they could. There was only one game where they guarded him in a preposterous manner and just allowed him to eviscerate them. The other times...
Yeah, that was game 2.
That was game 1. Game 1, they were going under on screens. It was...
I don't know. You're correct, but it really wasn't until game 2 when Portland made a concerted effort to trap Steph. I mean, the attempt to double Steph off the pick and roll didn't really start until game 2.
No, that's what I'm saying. And game 2, they started guarding him like they wanted to not have him kill them, and he's still capable. There's no way to guard him. There's no good way. Like, the only way to actually slow Steph down is to just be so exceptional that you manage to make it work. Like, it's going under, going over. Like, you just need to commit to whatever you're going to do. But I think there is a wrong way to do it, and it's going under. You can't go under.
Yeah, I mean, they were trying to set traps, and traps are honestly what caught Steph in the previous series in Houston. It's why he had a couple of games that were not great looks for Steph. And I suspect that Toronto will take notice and find they're going to definitely double Steph, but the problem is that it doesn't matter. He's still Steph Curry.
I do think that outside of Pat Beverly, Kyle Lowry's probably the best defender they have that Steph has seen in the playoffs in a good long while.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that he still has a use on Portland, and we need to talk about Portland because their situation after this series is pretty dire.
I think they bring everyone back, right?
You are correct, but this is kind of like that first skit where I was pulling names from a hat, and it's like, what should they do? What are they going to do? Like, they're going to bring everyone back, and they're going to say, oh, we lost Nurkic, and that's really the reason why, we couldn't do as much as we wanted to do. And, yeah, I mean, Enes Kanter has a purpose, but he should not be your starter.
Yeah, but
oh my God,
how much better could you do?
God.
They made the Western Conference Finals. Like, they did as well as they could do outside of beating the Warriors. Like, they did the thing. that you build a team to
But
do.
you are completely ignoring the fact that after Dame got his shot against Russell Westbrook, there was a surreptitious decline in his offensive output.
Totally. And
consistently he got worse as he played more.
Totally, but I would say that it's actually speaks highly of Portland as a team and how it's constructed, that despite the fact that their best player had some kind of okay games and some bad ones in the playoffs, they still made it to the Western Conference Finals.
But I mean, Dame was still having struggles against Jokic, like a matchup that he should thrive on. He still was not. He was struggling. He was still shooting like 30% on threes and like 40% on the field.
What do you do? Like, he's your best player and he's one of the best players in the league. Like, you live with that. It happens.
I feel like the problem is that they're going to hit the same problem that OKC is facing right now with their roster and Russell Westbrook is. I mean, I guess we can jump into it. I mean, here's the problem. I hate Supermax contracts. I think that it's irreparably hurting the league. It's irreparably damaging the ability for, players and teams to stay together, and that is the complete opposite intent that Supermax contracts were designed to meet. Now, here's the problem, and I feel bad because no player deserves a Supermax contract as much as Dame on the Trailblazers. He deserves that money. He is the cultural icon of that team.
He will get that money.
He will get that money. However, that is going to be 40% of their cap, and their ability to actually create a team that can fix all of these stopgaps will be irreparably damaged as a result of this Supermax contract. They're not going to be able to get a better bench player instead of Enes Kanter. They're not going to be able to sign people during free agencies. And I really honestly think that the big problem is that everyone in the West will probably make a leap because of free agency or free agency signings. And they are effectively stuck playing the same team. The same situation that OKC is in.
I would say that the main difference between the two is that I think that outside of Paul George and Russell Westbrook and Steven Adams, everyone else on the Thunder is mediocre to replaceable, or actively bad.
Here's the deal. Portland has some pretty atrocious contracts. They have some bad contracts. They've got money that they've wasted.
It's just Evan Turner's contract. The other contracts are okay.
But that's a really bad contract, man.
It's a very bad contract. But I would say that Portland spots 4 through 7 are players who I would want more than anyone else on the Thunder. And that depth means that I think they're going to be in the playoffs year after year for the next 3 or 4 years, which is what you're really saying with Dame's contract. That's what you want. That is the goal. So I think I agree, it will hamstring their ability to pay other people, but I think you got to pay him.
And I'm not disagreeing with you. Dame deserves this money. The problem is that the Blazers have no cap space. They're going to lose free agents, and their ability to actually get better and even return to the Western Conference, I think that it's going to be impossible for them to get to the Western Conference Finals again, barring a crisis with the other rising talents.
I don't think it's impossible. I just think that it's a crapshoot. They got a good bracket this year, but every year is going to be tough because the Western Conference is a knife fight every single year. And I think you just need to be in a position where you're good enough that if the bracket breaks right and you get a little lucky, you're the team that faces the Warriors in the finals. And I think that this core gives you that shot. And I think that the improvement comes from Nurkic coming back and CJ just taking it to that next level. CJ is clearly capable of more, and this playoffs he proved it, which is great. So I think we should discuss the other end of the bracket because the Bucks got beaten in it. It was sad. It hurt me.
Yeah, it hurt me too because I think Giannis was our only hope. I mean, Kawhi is a beast, and credit to him, but Giannis was the only one who had even a shadow of a hope of beating the Warriors because I think that it's really unfortunate because what I was about to say is I think that the Milwaukee Bucks have a better bench than Toronto. even though the part of the reason why the Milwaukee Bucks lost 4 games in a row is because their bench did not step up.
Yeah, they had a shooting slump at the worst possible time. Though
at the worst possible time.
They had 6 games. There was a blowout on Milwaukee's side, a blowout on the Raptors side, and then 3 coin toss games, and they all happened to go the Raptors' way.
And what is worth mentioning, and I don't think not enough people talk about it, but it was between everyone in that series in the Eastern Conference Final, everyone was shooting poorly. Like, I mean, there were times when Kawhi was shooting 30 from the field.
It was a rock fight.
It was a rock fight. It was in terms of shooting, it was a bad series.
Yeah. So I think that ultimately Milwaukee just got some unlucky bounces. Like, it was a very, very close series, even though it was 6 games. Like, 3 of those games, 1 game went to overtime, and then there were 2 games that were down to the last minute, and 2-point games down to the last minute.
So I think that Giannis just needs to add something to his repertoire that's either shooting or posting. And then also fixing this problem of he's shooting for 50% on free throws. Like, I know that bigs normally have a harder time on the free throw line, but they're going to exploit that. I think this is why, though, Gino. I think this is part of the reason why I'm almost okay with them letting all of these free agents walk, because this bench basically didn't show up. I mean, they had an opportunity to show that they could reinforce Giannis during his time of need when they were throwing 3 bodies in front of him. And I don't know. I'm not going to say what basketball Twitter said is like, Giannis is looking like a role player. It's like, no.
Nope. I would say that of these players, of the Bucks' current roster, I would want to keep, above all else, Malcolm Brogdon and Chris Middleton. I think secondary priorities should be Brook Lopez and Eric Bledsoe. And then, because Bledsoe...
And everyone else because Mirotic was unplayable.
I don't think you'd want to let them walk.
This entire season, he was unplayable.
I wouldn't go out of my way to re-sign Mirotic if his number is going to be too high. I would want Pat Connaughton. He's pretty good. But I would want him on, a bench player's salary. I don't want to be paying him $5 million. I want to be paying him $2 million. I would want Sterling Brown. I don't need to keep many of these guys. Ersan Ilyasova, I think, outplayed Mirotic for large stretches of the playoffs. So I think you can probably afford to keep most of them, which is...
It depends if they want their money. Because if they don't want their money, fine, great. You got all of these players for a discount. But my worry is that you shouldn't spend too much money. I mean, even someone like Malcolm Brogdon is replaceable in the grand scheme of things.
I don't know. I don't know how replaceable he is. Because he's a much better ball handler and lead guard, I think, than Bledsoe.
I'm just going to say that I think that this free agency season is going to be crazy, and you might be surprised of the players that get attracted to Milwaukee. Previously, what we would call a small market team, and now it's one of the biggest growing markets there is.
I would really like that because I think that they are a steadier point guard and just maybe like 1 or 2 bench guys away from just being a dominant team.
Yeah. I feel like, to just go back to the Portland series, like that's a team where if they had just one more All-Star, I think that Portland would be vying for that Western Conference Final or Finals appearance. I think the Bucks have a little bit more wiggle room. I mean, they don't have a great cap space situation, but I mean, it is what it is. I mean, they're going to make the playoffs again next year, especially if all these reports about Kawhi Leonard are leaving. I mean, although let's go back to the previous episode. Remember when I asked you, like, what kind of look does it for Toronto if Kawhi walks? Well, I think we can say, even if it was at the cost of DeMar DeRozan, they got the better end of this bargain. They are in the finals for the first time in their franchise history. It was worth it.
I think that's exactly what I said when the trade happens. They traded DeMar DeRozan for a guy who's better than DeMar DeRozan at everything DeMar DeRozan does. He's better in every way, plays basically the same position, and just by upgrading that position from a kind of streaky mid-range shooter who thrives on the line and is a average defensive player with the best defensive player in the league maybe when he's dialed in, and just an absolute killer in ISO who can get a shot off against anyone and who shoots 40% from three willingly. Like, it was a no-brainer trade. They didn't like Jakob Poeltl was the biggest long-term trade chip that they gave up. Like, you do that 10 times out of 10.
And that first round pick wasn't going anywhere either.
Yeah. So Pete actually had some input on this. He said, "Much as I wish it wasn't true, I think Kawhi is gone too." This was following up from his KD leaving point. Weirdly enough, I think the odds he goes are higher if Toronto wins the championship, and his likelihood is compounded by the incredible way Kawhi has ravaged this whole postseason. I'll let someone else rattle off the stats. Suffice it to say, Kawhi's two-way dominance in these playoffs has been one of the most impressive basketball stretches I can remember. Imagine if he goes from neutralizing as much as any mortal man can, Giannis, to shadowing Curry around screens anywhere inside 40 feet. It's incredible. If he wins the title and does it like this, what's left for him in Toronto? But if they fall short, maybe that's enough to keep him around. I don't think so, but maybe.
Nah, I think he's gone no matter what.
He also said, I actually like the way this whole season has played out for Kawhi. He was a mercenary from the very beginning. It was clear and honest. Playing in the NBA is a job and a team is a workplace. There would be a lot less sanctimonious puffery and dishonest moralization, apolitization of sports if more people approach the league like this. I imagine Kawhi did this year. But take a look at Kawhi's claw logo. It's terrible. I submit there's never been a good personal logo for any athlete in any sport. If you don't count Jordan's Jumpman, once again, he's the best ever.
Oh boy, where do we start? I think he's gone no matter what. That's what I've said from the beginning, is that the Raptors made a high-risk, high-value trade in getting rid of a franchise player for someone who could possibly give them their best postseason performance, and that's exactly what happened. And I think that even if Kawhi leaves, the Toronto Raptors aren't in a horrible situation because they've got options. I mean, you've untapped the potential of Pascal Siakam.
And Fred VanVleet.
Although there were times when Fred VanVleet was like asleep or just invisible in the series against the Bucks, especially games 1 and 2. That said, you also have Kyle Lowry, who you can now trade because his stock is high, and you can get a lot in your return.
Yeah, I think that they will be in a good spot. Even if he leaves, I think they're a lower-level playoff team if they keep Kyle Lowry. And then if everyone leaves, they're rebuilding. They're solidly rebuilding. But
yeah,
you know,
you have pieces.
You went to the finals,
in the first time of your franchise's history.
You do this job. You do the job of an executive like Masai Ujiri to be in this spot, and he successfully positioned a team that had Rudy Gay, Kyle Lowry, DeMar DeRozan, and this was before DeMar really broke out. They had Andrea Bargnani. He successfully positioned that team, and they had lost Chris Bosh. Like, he turned that team into a team that's in the finals. Like, can't regret any of it. Let's see. So, let's discuss a little bit of the actual matchup. Here's Pete's analysis of the Warriors-Raptors series. If I were Nick Nurse, I would start Gasol over Ibaka, but when the Warriors go small, I would downshift with Pascal and Kawhi as my front court, at which point I would seriously consider putting Kawhi on Draymond. The Raptors have enough guards to throw at Curry, shout out Jeremy Lin, but Kawhi on Draymond would challenge their floor spacing and give Kawhi just enough rest on the defensive end to keep his offensive output sufficiently high. If Iguodala or Draymond finds their three-point stroke during the series, and if Fred VanVleet stops shooting 75% from three, the series is over. When those guys get going too, there's nothing anyone can do against the Warriors. Cousins is cleared to play in Game 1, but Steve Kerr should use him sparingly, if at all. The Raptors are better off the longer Gasol can stay on the floor, and using Cousins makes that exponentially easier, especially if Cousins is still shaking off some of the rust. Cousins presents another interesting question this offseason in his own right. I wouldn't pay him. And this year he thinks finally...
Wait, what was that?
Pete would not pay DeMarcus Cousins when the season's over. And this year, Curry finally gets his finals MVP.
I think that's probably the likelier of the two.
I would say, in terms of the analysis, I need to stop starting with I would say. My analysis kind of mirrors Pete's. I would start with Gasol but I would take Ibaka off the bench if the Warriors start lighting you up with Gasol on the floor, which is entirely possible. I would definitely put Kawhi on Draymond to start, because then he can kind of roam. And when he's roaming, like, if he's blitzing Steph, it's a very different situation than if Dame and, Cantor are blitzing Steph.
Yeah.
So I think that gives him the most flexibility, and it allows you to switch every Steph and Draymond pick and roll.
I think that they need to just start with starters that can allow them to blitz the Warriors and take an early lead, because I think that the Warriors know that they can't mess around the way that they did with Portland, where if they were down by double digits, they could get it back. I think that you have to force Golden State's hand and force them to play their 2016 death lineup to the best of their abilities and wear them out over time. I mean, I think that's barring – the only concern I have is if Danny Green can actually continue to be good on the perimeter. But he's been so stone cold in the previous series. I mean, he was 0 for 9 a couple of times. And he's been scoreless a lot more than he needs to be. And, I mean, there was time where he shot 0 for 9 on threes. Like, that can't happen. Because your second option for shooting guard is Norman Powell, and that ain't doing it. You can't have a position. You cannot have a position where someone's shooting 0.
Yeah, especially when you need him to be guarding Clay or Steph. You need a second competent small forward shooting guard sized person. And I think Pascal's going to help with that, but you don't want him chasing Clay all over the place. That's basically what Danny Green is in the league to do.
And he's just not performed as expected. And I think that something that they can do, and I think they are capable of doing, they can out-rebound the Golden State Warriors. I mean, you have Kawhi, you have Serge, you've got Gasol. You can out-rebound them, and I think that's to their advantage. They're taller, they're bigger, they're thicker. They can get rebounds offensively and defensively. And I think that if they're aggressive, even though they're going to rack up fouls like crazy, one thing that I thought was really entertaining in the series is in the series against the Trailblazers, what was it? Draymond picked up 5 fouls and was still playing. Mm-hmm. You got to force Draymond to foul out. I think that if you can do that, and it is possible, if you are aggressive on rebounding, you can cause Draymond or Iggy to foul out, and then now you have their 2 best defensive specialists out early. So I think it's possible. I think it's possible that the Raptors can play into some of the weaknesses because, again, looking at the Golden State Warriors bench, it doesn't look good. I don't like this bench. I think their bench is bad. Like, objectively, I think that the Warriors bench in a post-Kevin Durant, DeMarcus
I guess they
started. DeMarcus is going to play. But even then, you're dealing with a one-legged DeMarcus.
Yeah.
Who is still probably one of the best centers in the league. And I actually like Kevon Looney on the bench, so that is going to be a thing that helps them out. But
I want Kevon to be starting. I want DeMarcus to come off the bench, and I want to mirror basically anytime Gasol comes off the floor, when it's still bench lineups, not if the Warriors force Gasol to just not play. If it's a bench lineup, I want to put DeMarcus in, and I want him on Serge Ibaka because Serge Ibaka isn't going to kill him, and he should be able to kill Serge in the post. I want that to be my secondary hub of my offense when bench units are in because Lord knows you can't have Steph or Clay or Dre. Like, those guys can't be in 48 minutes a game. You're going to need someone to create some offense outside of them. And I think that DeMarcus can still be that guy.
But I think that they got DeMarcus to shoot. They got DeMarcus to shoot en masse in a position that has normally been one of their weakest offensive positions. And maybe you're right. I think it's better if you just keep him as a last-ditch effort to possibly fix a need when you fall behind early. But my worry is if and it's not a worry because I'd be okay with it. just falling apart. If the Warriors fall behind early, it's going to be a lot harder for them to get those points back because Kawhi is not going to sleep. But my only concern there is Kawhi looked so hurt at the end of this series against the Bucks.
Yeah, he looks tired.
He looked
and hurt.
Tired and hurt, exhausted. He looked beat up.
Yeah. Kawhi is going to have to gut it out, and he's capable of it.
It's possible, but I don't know, man.
So here's...
I don't know.
Here's Pete's last take. Finally, I think it's worth wondering what were I an Oaklandite, would prefer to happen in this series. The last one, the Warriors will play in Oakland before moving to San Francisco, at which point their games will become even more prohibitively expensive for non-tech bros to attend. I think out of spite, I would want them to lose, but then again, I'd advocate for a mercenary approach to sports, see Kawhi's section above, in which management couldn't use team loyalty as a way of extorting their labor force and extracting public subsidies for stadium construction. The two biggest scourges of modern professional sports are salary controls, which include the draft, and public financing for stadiums. That includes tax breaks, which are the same thing, even if they are presented as different to seem more palatable.
I knew it. He had a communistical rant inside of him on a basketball podcast. I couldn't avoid it. Even when basketball's good, I couldn't avoid it.
Well, as someone who...
I don't know. I think my other concern as someone who lives near that area, that stadium is being built as far away from public transportation. The one thing you can say about the Oakland Coliseum, or not the Oakland Coliseum, that's the A's, the Oracle Arena, is that it's built next to a BART station, so it's convenient to go there. And now I'm going to have to, get an Uber or some sort of thing like that to watch these games.
Yeah, I'd like it if they went out on top. I really like this Warriors team. I've liked watching them. I don't especially get the hate. I think they're one of the most fun, dominant teams in a while. They play a fun style. I'll be glad when Kevin Durant is gone because I think him being gone will let us appreciate them again. And once that happens, we get to see Steph unleashed. And for the last 3 years, he's had to share the court with someone who deserves the ball as much as he does. But once that stops being the case, maybe we'll get another one of those Steph seasons where he was just annihilating what we thought about a good shot.
Yeah.
Do you remember the season where they won 73 wins? It was so fun.
It was fun, but there were definitely... I wish that was the Warriors we got in 2017. I've said this before. It's like one of my favorite NBA finals. To this day, my absolute favorite NBA finals. 2014. And I'll tell you why. Because Kawhi and Popovich and Durant, they were on a revenge path, and they were going to lay waste to everyone and everything behind them. They set everyone on fire. That was probably the year that OKC actually should have won the finals. But they're like, nah, son, we want revenge. We want revenge.
We want blood.
Actually, that's 2015. Yeah.
Danny Green forgot how to miss shots so that we could win these games.
Yeah, and I would have liked to have seen a Warriors team that was basically the old school death lineup get revenge and prove that they were the better team because they were the better team. They were just tired and they got unlucky on threes rather than pulling a fucking Thanos and getting the last Infinity Stone and putting it in the gauntlet and causing everyone around you to die. That's not a revenge. That's your Thanos.
They snapped their fingers and
you snapped your fingers. That's not revenge. That's
not as fun. It's not as fun when you just snap your fingers.
I think it would be. I don't know, man. I actually want to see. I would be kind of excited if Golden State won these games without Kevin Durant because I think that's a statement.
That would be the best. Could you imagine what it would do? I mean, I like Kevin Durant. I have a Kevin Durant jersey. I have 2 Kevin Durant jerseys.
You have a Seattle Supersonics Kevin Durant jersey.
I have a extra large Seattle Supersonics Kevin Durant jersey. And I don't like when people are put into a dark mental place as a general rule. But for sports entertainment purposes, and considering Kevin Durant's very specific ego situation, where I think Pete put it very well, he wants completely unconditional respect, and anything less than that is unsatisfactory. I want to know what it would do if in the finals they just put the Raptors away in like 4 games. I don't think that that's in the cards. I think the Raptors are too good for that. But man,
But I kind of want it to happen.
That would be the most entertaining NBA, wouldn't it?
It would. I honestly think it would be better for everyone if the Warriors won in 4 and they proved not only can we win, but we're a more entertaining team. We're a closer knit team. I think it would be better for like the best case scenarios is if Warriors win in 4.
Or the Raptors win and then we have a really fun offseason with like Toronto going insane. That would be pretty fun too.
Yeah.
But I think a mealy-mouthed battle where the Warriors like barely come out on top after Kevin Durant comes back that would not be as fun.
I think that's going to be what happens, though.
Yeah, it's just
that's why I'm predicting. I mean, are we moving into our predictions? What was Pete's prediction?
Pete actually started his write-up with Warriors in 6.
Yeah, I think it's going to be 7 games, and I'm going to say Warriors.
I think these teams are really evenly matched, so I want to say Warriors in 7. But I've been a gambling man these entire playoffs.
Do it.
I want to gamble on the most fun potential outcome. I'm going to say Warriors in 5 because I'm going to give them respect. I'm going to give the Raptors respect.
You know what? I feel like my gut reaction has been wrong. I think I have the most wrong predictions ever. I'm going to change my vote. I'm going to say Toronto in 7.
There we go. There's fun. So we've got a completely tepid Warriors in 6. Pete's not even here to defend himself.
I'm still here. What are you talking about?
So we've got that Warriors in 6. We've got I'm going big, Warriors in 5, and then you're going all the way, Raptors in 7.
I'm going all the way. I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it.
Excellent.
The hell with it.
So that's another NBA podcast. These finals are going to be fun, man. I'm going to enjoy watching them. I need to go find a place to watch them because the game's starting soon.
Yep. All
Thank
right.
you. Reminder, if you want to get in touch with the show, you can do so at DeepListensPod on Twitter, deeplistens.libsyn.com. We've got our comment sections and deeplistenspodcast@gmail.com. You can send us emails, and if you've got NBA emails, we will listen to them. Like, we've got the draft coming up in the off-season, so we will have probably like an episode.
The hilarity of what is going on on the Lakers, it continues to be amazing. It's the best. Did you read the article?
I didn't read Baxter Holmes' work. I listened to.
Oh my God, it's so good.
With Zach Lowe, and
you need to read it. It's so good,
man.
And it's like Pete said, this is all LeBron's fault.
Yeah,
he brought it on himself.
He said in his write-up, "I'll save any discussion of the Lakers, Anthony Davis, or Zion for when we get to our actual off-season/draft podcast."
It's the funniest thing. Like, oh my God! Like, and then like Magic Johnson coming out and saying, "I'm not a snake. I just did it out of solidarity for Luke Walton." It's like, what? No?
Yeah, this is.
Oh, this is the best.
So get your emails in. The finals are coming up. If you've got predictions, go ahead, write them in, and then we'll have an off-season podcast. So it'd be cool if we had an actual Balls Deep specific email bucket. That'd be cool. I'll tweet it out. We'll try and get that going. All right. Thanks, ZP.
Okay.
And thank you, listeners. Till next time. Peace.